Question about Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. You said the other day that you had a talk with the secretary. Did you take him to the woodshed?
I had a talk with him, and whatever I said, I probably wouldn't be inclined to tell you. But we had a good talk.
You have 100% confidence in Pete Hegseth?
I don't have 100% confidence in anything. Okay, anything. Do I have 100%? It's a stupid question. Look.
It's a pretty important position.
No. You don't have 100%. Only a liar would say I have 100% confidence.
Now, if you're Pete Hegseth or kind of anybody, that's not what you want to hear your president say about you. Hegseth faces mounting scrutiny for sharing advance notice of a U.S. military attack with unclassified group chats, one that inexplicably included Hegseth's wife, a former Fox News producer. There's news about her today, too, in the Washington Post, from her unorthodox influence over Pentagon affairs to the revelation that she was part of a second group chat established by her husband that included other political appointees at the Pentagon, according to two people familiar with the matter. Quote, the other group chat includes Sean Parnell, a senior advisor and spokesman, and Tammy Radabaugh, a former Fox News producer, overseeing how Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon engage with the media, these people said. All right, joining us at the table is the host of the Independent Americans podcast and founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America, Paul Rieckhoff, and Mara Gay's with us as well. Paul, talk to me about this. I find myself at a loss for words when discussing Pete Hegseth these days because I don't know what the complaint is. Is it about Pete Hegseth and his chats? Is it about national security? Is it about the running of the very important Department of Defense? What concerns you the most here?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I think it's a consistent culture of sloppiness, incompetence, and exposure. And Signalgate is far from over. We've had no accountability. We've had no bipartisan investigations. And we don't even know what has stopped. So it appears he may still be disclosing confidential and classified information on Signal. That could be ongoing. He hardlined a specific computer into a SCIF room just so he could be on Signal. So he consistently goes around the rules that are in place to prevent people from dying.
And just to be clear, how serious is this? Because there are reasons the government has protocols about how you communicate military stuff.
This is flabbergasting. I mean, everybody across the military would be run out of town if they did this. I mean, can you imagine if Bob Gates or Dick Cheney or Don Rumsfeld or anyone else tried this crap? I mean, it's absolutely unprecedented by either party, and it continues. And I think where Hegseth is really struggling is the hits keep on coming because now they're coming from the people that he fired.
Yes.
He brought in a number of close advisors. Now they're talking to the press. They're going on Tucker Carlson. They're bombing away on Megyn Kelly. And it's surrounding him and it's consuming him. And the chaos of his own controversy is overtaking the Pentagon. And I think where Trump is really keeping an eye on things is that Pete Hegseth isn't doing as well on TV as he used to. He used to be really strong as a messenger, as a propagandist, as a spinmeister. But lately he's looking a little rattled on TV. And that's where I think Trump may keep a short leash on him.
What's your sense of it? First of all, I almost feel like just playing something we talked about earlier in which you said, where's Congress on all this stuff? Today, as we speak, there is an effort to make sure that Democrats cannot even hold inquiries into these matters.
Right. That's right. And it's unfortunate. It's alarming because there are many questions, even to someone who didn't cover the Pentagon, that I have just as an ordinary journalist for Pete Hegseth. One of those is, what led you to use Signal to begin with? Do you not trust the Pentagon's actual security apparatus? What else are you using this for? Who else is on Signal? What else are you planning on this? And why are you trying to hide this? I mean, oftentimes when you are a political journalist, you find that there are sources in certain governments, local governments, who might use their personal email to communicate. That is a problem because it's much harder for the public to find out about what they are communicating. And these people are not in charge of the nuclear codes. So this is obviously unacceptable, but there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And Pete Hegseth should be made available to the American people to answer them. So the question then is, why is Congress not doing its job?
Paul, the way this seems to play out is information leaks out. Pete Hegseth then begins an investigation about leakers and then goes on TV. Part of the reason you're saying he seems rattled is because he's having a different conversation than the one that Mara's just asking about. People want to know what's going on in the Defense Department, and he's carrying on about disgruntled former staffers who are leakers.
Yeah, he's blocking and deflecting and continuing to try to act as though this is no big deal. And I think Trump and others are trying to spin it away, but the hits just keep on coming. Almost every 24 hours, we get a new breaking story about another element of exposure. And that's really what this is. I mean, what should be most concerning to people about the involvement of his wife is she's unvetted. She hasn't passed any security background checks. She has no formal position. She's joining him in meetings with foreign leaders. And she's a former Fox News producer. So she's kind of his handler, is what this reporting is starting to show. And what are her qualifications? What are her exposures? And all these exposures are also potentially capitalized on by the Chinese, by the Russians, by our enemies. Our enemies are celebrating the culture of sloppiness and incompetence that has defined Pete Hegseth. This was what we were concerned about before he got confirmed. And now we need to hear from people like Joni Ernst, who was the defining vote on his confirmation, and hear from Republicans about why they are confident that our national security isn't continuing to be exposed right now.
And this is part of the problem, that this is people may be cheering for the fall of certain of these cabinet secretaries, except this is the Department of Defense. This is actually really, really serious.
One more question for you, Senator, on this question of security, which was so central to the appeal that he made to the American people. You have been among the most vocal critics of Pete Hegseth. You have called for his resignation. He just today ended a program for women at the Pentagon, the Women, Peace and Security Program, arguing that it was nothing more than a DEI initiative. Your response to their prioritizing this?
Well, I haven't looked into the Women's Peace and Security Initiative, I think you called it, and I hadn't heard that news. But it's obvious that Pete Hegseth has been not an effective Secretary of Defense, and who could be surprised? He was ill-equipped. Unqualified for this job. I made this point before his confirmation vote, asking my Republican Senate colleagues if they were sure they want to put this guy in charge of the Defense Department. And he has messed this up significantly. And because of this is one of the issues I brought up earlier. Americans are less safe.
The president also tells the magazine that he's spoken with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth about that signal chat fallout. Tell us what he said.
Yeah, sure. You know, some would call this the kiss of death. I would say Pete Hegseth has just one more step before he could potentially get pushed out of office, pushed out of his position. But Donald Trump was asked about Pete Hegseth and the Signalgate controversy. And Donald Trump said, I think he's going to get it together. Now, imagine that. Saying that about your defense secretary. I think he's going to get it together. I had a talk with him, a positive talk, but I had a talk with him. You know, my parents used to have talks with me. I didn't always get it together, but I'm sure Pete Hegseth will take that advice very sharply.
I'm sure you always listened to your parents, and you were a very good boy.
I was a good. Yeah, well,
that's
sometimes.
The new CNN polling that is just out is giving us a better idea of what Americans think of Trump's job performance as he closes in this week on 100 days in office. And it's not necessarily good news for the White House. No. Break down the latest numbers for us.
No, Wolf, it really isn't. You know, we'll see Donald Trump out over the next couple of days. We'll see him in Michigan tomorrow night, talking about his 100 days. He's supposedly having fun in the White House. He said he's telling us. But if you look at these numbers right now, they are just dismal right now. He has lost 7 points in just the couple of months, in 60 days. He has now gone underwater, as we show right there. But where is he losing the support from? He's losing it from independents on just about every issue. Let's just look at the issues right here that we have seen his drop. Almost every issue, from 3 points drop in foreign policy to a 9-point drop in inflation. He is not polling well. Donald Trump, if you look at immigration as well, right there at 45%, and that's supposed to be his number one issue, Wolf.
I want to get your comments very quickly on something that President Trump said to The Atlantic in an interview that just published this morning, kind of his most expansive comments on Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. He said, quote, I think he's gonna get it together. I had a talk with him, but I had a talk with him. He said, it's just the phrasing there. I think he's gonna get it together sort of implies that he doesn't yet have it together, or certainly that he hasn't had it together. You, in your old gig, you dealt with a lot of secretaries of defense. Is it the type of job that you want to be learning on the job?
No, of course not. And not only did I deal with secretaries of defense working for them, I was actually the senior military assistant, the 3-star billet in the Secretary of Defense's office for Donald Rumsfeld. So I know that office extremely well. I know the pressures of it. Don Rumsfeld went into that job having already been the Secretary of Defense and had many, many challenges. It is, in many ways, the hardest job in Washington. And I think it is not a place you want to be kind of learning as you go.
Was that quote about Hegseth saying he better get his act together. For him even to admit that his act needs to get together is something he usually doesn't do. And he is aware that the Defense Department right now is a mess, and that is a problem for him. And that's ultimately when you lose a job around Trump. If you start to make him look bad and he can do it on his terms and doesn't feel like he's capitulating to the press, he'll make a move. And I think Hegseth is clearly on a clear warning that if you don't get your act together, you're out, which probably should be the way you do it if you're losing all of your staff and you have a lot of a controversy at what is kind of an important department. The Department of Defense kind of keeps us safe, and so you do want sane, smart leadership there.
Important, yeah.
That's kind of important. That's that Midwest understatement by Jim Vanda. Yeah, you look at the quote again where he's talking about that we just put up, where he's talking about his conversation with Pete Hegseth, because I think he's going to get it together. I had a talk with him, a positive talk, but I had a talk with him. Yeah, you doesn't take a whole lot to read between.
Trump continues to infuriate military people, right? And you see it. You see many people have talked about this, including Mark Kelly. We've seen other former military service people in both parties criticize Donald Trump and say, you are hurting the country. There's yes, the ideology. I've talked about this. There's with Trump, this term even more than the first term. In the first term, there was incompetence and there was ideological evil. In this term, they've kept the same evil and gone a little bit further. But what's really changed this time is the level of incompetence. The evil is like it's there, but it's just like a couple steps higher than 2016. 2017, the incompetence is where it really shines, because Trump had lots of people doing evil stuff for him 2016, 2017, or 2017, 18, 19, 20, whatever. But nothing like Hegseth, guys. It's such a clown show. And again, this really goes to show that, like, even with Hegseth, it's like, I think he's unqualified. This is not a thing where I think he's a traitor. I don't think he's a traitor. I think he's just not qualified and doesn't know what the frig he's doing. And his unprofessionalism and his incompetence, his lack of experience is putting people at risk. You don't have to be a literal spy for like Russia or for another like American enemy adversarial country to put people at risk. You obviously, yes, that, but what we're seeing with Hegseth is that he makes American service people unsafe, both in the sense that he could leak plans that end up with the enemy, or that, you know, any other country is not going to share info with the U.S., knowing it could get leaked, and that lack of info could hurt American service people.